In this video, we're going to look at these three titles and why I think they're quite special in the way they work. I've set up the three titles that we've just been looking at. We'll start with the box blur title, and we will find, I think here, the Fusion comp for this title. I'm not going to give tutorials on how the titles were made today. If people want that, comment below and I'll quite happily do tutorials on how I set the titles up. But what's more important from the point of view of this video is how they're used. Now, what's special about these titles is that they all interact with the actual media itself. Now, routinely, if you use a title, it sits on top of the media and it doesn't interact with this media other than to appear on top of it. What the three titles that you saw at the start of the video do is actually interact with this media. Now, you can make titles in Fusion and you can save them as titles, but they don't then interact with the media. You need to be able to pull your media into your title. And that's easy enough to do as a one-off, but what I wanted to do was create a title that you could use and edit on the edit tab the same as you would any title in your titles section. And I managed to do that. So this, if you go to the inspector, has all the sort of controls that you would expect in a title. You can change the text, the font, you can change various colors. But because of the blurred background, this is actually blurring the footage and you need to be able to access the footage. And I had a bit of a eureka moment. And basically all you have to do, instead of saving this as a title, is that you come into Fusion, you select all the nodes except the media in and the media out, and you create your macro. And once you've created your macro, you save it, but instead of saving it in the titles folder, you save it in the effects folder, and it works. You then have a title with the ability here to pull the media into the title, and then you can interact with the title, so you can have your blur on your title. In the other examples, so the video in text, again, to get video in text, you need your video. So again, if you go into Fusion, you've made your title and you select everything between your media in, your media out, make it into a macro, and you can save it into the effects folder rather than the titles folder. One thing of note, coming back to the blur box, and I think also the glass text, if you save into the effects folder, it expects one input. So for example here, the same media goes down two different paths. So what you need to do is put a pipe router immediately after your media in. To get a pipe router, all you do is you press your Alt key and click on the line, and you get a pipe router. What the pipe router does is when you save this as a macro, it means you've got one input and one output, and that's what you need for your effects. You can't have multiple inputs, otherwise it just goes haywire. So yeah, that's basically it. That's how you can make titles that interact with your footage and are usable from the edit tab. So what you would do is you would go to your effects library, which is at the top here. Since the advent of 17.4, we can now add subfolders into our various effects folders. So you've got Motion VFX subfolder, which they built themselves. But what I did was I put another subfolder in called titles, and then you can just drop your titles into that folder. So they're treated and act as effects, but you can edit them as though they were titles. I hope that kind of makes sense. It's quite short and sweet. So you can get things like glass text, you can get your blurred background to your text boxes. You can have your video in text, but you can edit it. So you can come to effects, and you can change your text. You can resize it. You can do all the things that you would like to do with a text node. What this also allows us to do is mess around with the footage inside. So if you've got some footage that the main action is maybe off to the side a bit, you've got some flexibility with your footage size and your footage position to move it around. This isn't a particularly good font, but again, if you then come and change your font, and maybe tweak your line spacing and your tracking a bit so that you've got more of a block, and then you get a better sense of what's going on inside your text, like so. That's basically it. I hope that makes sense. Please feel free to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and as I say, if you want tutorials on any of these, just drop a comment below and I'll happily do tutorials for the actual titles. Cheers.